Hey everybody, welcome to the garden. I hope you're having a great day. Shout out to the lemon and lime lovers and everybody in between. It's time for the crypto market recap. Let's hop into these charts, see what the story is and what it may be. And remember, if you're interested in any of the services I provide, please check the links in the description below for both the Patreon and Discord. Okay, so what's on the docket today? We're going to be looking at Bitcoin and Solana, as yes, we are still long even after this breakdown. We'll go over exactly what's going on here. And we're going to take a look at a couple of altcoins, Avalanche, which we closed thankfully before the sell-off. And we'll take a quick look at Ethereum and maybe a few others if we have time. All right, so let's start with Bitcoin. So as we can see, finally Bitcoin is breaching under this ascending trend line, the green line here, which is very strong support. So we'll see if by the end of the day it could have a very decisive, powerful close under it, which will likely bring us towards the bottom of the rising wedge, which is this ascending trend line here, around 37,000, maybe 37.5. So, the probabilities of us going further down had been increasing throughout the entire weekend. As I saw, we weren't getting any major impulse higher, especially after the sell-off on April 14th. The bear flags that were forming, though they weren't, fully formed, were starting to become more probable to play out as we were not getting any further impulse higher throughout the weekend. At that time, it was very likely that we were going to see at least one more bounce until we didn't get any sort of bounce, especially around Saturday or Sunday. That's when it was like, okay, we're probably going to sit on this support for a while longer, and if we were going to see sell-off, it was going to come at the beginning of this week, and boom, we got it. So now we're just going to have to hold through our long and do our add-ons where we had already looked over where we were looking to see price get to, right? So this is why having a game plan, a roadmap is so valuable. We're not surprised. We saw this as a potential possibility. It wasn't the most probable path, but it wasn't impossible at all. So now we know we want to take a look maybe at 38,000. We can maybe get a quick add-on here if we see a nice move that's going to lead towards a somewhat mediocre bounce that will probably get us to get back to this trend line to test it as resistance and then come lower. Okay, depending on how price comes into here, I might add on. Very likely, I'm leaning at least towards just waiting for it to drop lower to the bottom of this wedge, which is about 37,000. An add-on there I think would be great. It'll bring our average entry down pretty low, and we could probably get a nice retest onto the green line as resistance and probably take our profit there. Okay, so nothing crazy. We're totally okay. We just have to sit through and see how price action reacts. And again, it's also possible because this pattern isn't fully fleshed out when it broke through. It's possible that we just get a buy up right back into it, and we just end up being in the same place we were at the beginning of the holiday weekend. So we just have to give this time. So far, we're getting some buying pressure throughout the day, but it's very early on. We have about 8 hours before this daily candle closes, so we'll keep our eye on it. If it gets to the 38,000 mark or lower towards 37,000, I will very likely add at 37,000 for sure. That's almost I pretty much have that penciled in. 38,000, I have to wait and see how it looks on the daily time frame and then the lower time frames. Okay, so look forward to come a little bit lower, and then likely get to 37,000, and then there I would expect a pretty nice bounce, at least back to the green line here. Or if it's going to be really, really weak, okay, if Bitcoin shows real weakness, maybe 39,500. But I do see us breaking over 40,000 at least one or two more times before we break under and start the continue the trend to the downside on the macro scale. Okay, so let's take a quick look at Solana, see what's going on there. So Solana, very similar story, and Solana's actually, it's actually holding up pretty well percentage-wise, because all altcoins when against Bitcoin are going to have a more pronounced move. Mainly due to lack of liquidity compared to Bitcoin. So Solana is actually performing pretty well overall, holding this support, this horizontal support at $98. And now we're going to see if it can have some follow through and possibly. So this is why I'm not super bearish in the short term, because we do have these bear flags that seem to have been playing out, but it's also possible we may get some sort of wedge pattern that is going to form on this support. Similar to Bitcoin as well. Sorry about my cat. He's hanging with me, but he hears my voice and he thinks I'm talking to him. So we might get some sort of wedge pattern, which would lead us to go higher towards the the green line here. And Solana, same thing. Lead us higher to get towards 110 to 113. So I'm not totally out on the possibility that this could be a short-term bullish pattern forming and the overall bearish macro pattern. So we do want to give this more time, and that was another reason why I was pretty confident, pretty comfortable just holding the longs, that, and we're so little exposed overall. It's about like 4% for Bitcoin, 2% for Solana, really so little risk, even if I ended up being wrong, which I was. So we'll just hold this here. And if it does break lower, again, my level is definitely going to be this ascending, this thicker black line, this ascending trend line. For Solana, will likely perform very well as support, and that would be a great place to add on. It'll bring our average entry very low, and then we could target pretty much $98 to possibly get out. Okay. So, if you're in the longs with me, hopefully you followed my risk parameters at least to a point. I understand if you don't want to follow me, completely. You might be okay with a little bit more risk, but hopefully you didn't go overboard for exactly these moments. Because though, yes, we're in the red, and though, yes, it's going against us, this doesn't mean that it won't work out in the end as long as you control the risk. Because to me, all I'm seeing here is more opportunity to strengthen our position. Okay? So let's take a look at Avalanche. So Avalanche, beautiful. I mean, this trade worked out so well. We got in down here. We ended up selling around this zone here, like near the top of this candle, right here. So around like $80. And now we are on the sidelines watching Avalanche. And Avalanche so far is holding this support line, which is actually the bottom of this much larger macro bearish pattern. So as you can see, very similar to Bitcoin. It's like a bear flag that's formed, so it's at the bottom of it right now. It's possible it'll hold it. It's not, for me, the risk reward's not worth buying into this again, because if it does break down, well, I think we'll be able to get extremely, like much lower, around like $65. Maybe I can do a quick stab at 69 and maybe get a retest like that, but I'd rather try and aim for 65, and that would be a great place to go long to start it, and then maybe get a retest either at 69, which is very likely, or another retest at the bottom of the wedge, which is actually pretty likely as well, around $78. So that would be like my general place I would love to get long on Avax, depending on how Bitcoin looks, of course. So right now, Avalanche is decent. Okay, it's decent. It should play out this pattern eventually if Bitcoin, follows, because Bitcoin is going to lead the charge. So if we continue a buying impulse on Bitcoin, Avalanche will probably not break this pattern, validate this pattern yet. Okay, let's take a look at Ethereum. So Ethereum, yep, breaking down from support. Ethereum's bear flag was a lot cleaner. So Ethereum's been painting a lot cleaner patterns compared to the rest of the market. Not the cleanest like flag here. If it had a little bit more time, it'd probably be a bit cleaner. Like if it had one more impulse higher from here, then you would have got you probably would have gotten something like that, which would have been a lot prettier, similar to something like this. But it wanted to break down quicker. Right now it looks very likely to get back down to 2,800 at some point. Yeah, it's extremely probable at this point. And then eventually, if it gets to 2,800, it's probably just gonna wick down towards this larger line here, depending on how fast it gets there. And it'll hold that level until Bitcoin starts breaking down. This level is going to be very powerful. Until Bitcoin starts breaking down Ethereum, well, it's very unlikely it loses that level. Okay. Other than that, it's not much more to say on it. It could go. If it is going to, reverse higher, the target would still be the bottom of this bear flag here that it confirmed. So somewhere up here, if it takes its time, it'll eventually get towards 3,400, 3,330 again. So, if that was to happen, that's where I would target it, and that would probably be a great place to start a short and then use this line as another place to add on. Again, that's more of an unlikely scenario at this point. It's more likely it sees more downside. But, again, we'll wait and see. Again, it was immature patterns that were, forming, and then they eventually broke in the direction that they were indicating, but it did it pretty quickly. pretty quickly. Let's see what's next. Let's take a look at Luna, because having a pretty good day compared to the rest of the market. So Luna broke under the bear flag after it tried to break it bullish. Then it broke support here, and then it was so Luna's pretty interesting. So it came into this. This is really strong support over here. Okay, and what's interesting is how strong it's been in regard, like relative to Bitcoin, right? So like take a look at that. So it's holding this level, pretty impressive, and now it's having a pretty strong day, encroaching on this resistance here at 85.80. So it'll probably get there. Whether it breaks through that is pretty unlikely, at least today. Could tomorrow, if it has a follow-through day. My target would be the bottom of this bear flag to open short, and maybe even $100 if it gets to this box here. I will likely open short there. It'd be a great place to open short. The structure is going to be pretty bearish overall, and once it gets to that zone here, it's very likely to curl over and at least get back to 85. In my opinion, it'd probably go even lower, challenge this level again, maybe even paint a bearish pattern on top of it like that, and then eventually break lower to this very, very powerful support line, the ascending trend line here, getting back to like $60. So that's kind of what I'm seeing if Luna has a significant impulse this week going up to this level. Be a great place to open short. I think it'll catch a lot of people thinking that it's going to have a continuation higher. I will say, of course, it's possible. Everything's possible, but it's extremely unlikely with this sort of structure. Okay. And let's take a look at BNB, because BNB, last I looked, had a pretty interesting. It was not the worst looking chart. So okay, it's still within this zone of support, this thick black horizontal line here. So it's really not changed much. It's not compared to a lot of the other charts in crypto, it's pretty good. It's relatively more bullish. It's not super bullish. It's just more bullish. It had a possible very small bullish pattern forming here, but it looks like it's failing that. We'll see if that confirms. This buy up on this candle today is pretty nice so far. So if there's more continuation as we get closer to the end of the day, this could be a sign of a nice move back in. Again, we'll see. If it does break under, it does have a bunch of levels to go through. So BNB has a bunch of levels that it can hold. So here's one, got pretty close there. Here's another right here. So right there, and then you have. I mean, you could label this one too, like right here. Hold on one second. So there's like a rising one here, okay, and then obviously you have this thick one here at 333.6. So there's a lot of demand down here. But you gotta keep in mind the overall structure of this pattern is bearish, right? So you see how it's a rising pattern over major support here. So if this starts breaking down, you could buy here. I think you'll get some demand, but don't expect a massive rally from there, because at least it's not a probable move. It's more likely to break under this eventually, because this pattern is formed here, right? Because this whole point of this pattern is to try and get the fuel to break under the 333.6. Okay, so keep that in mind if you're going to go long here. Honestly, what I would suggest you do, if you're more into let's just say intraday trading. So I'll reveal my day trading strategy, at least one of the day trading strategies I do in the video. Essentially, I like to go on the hourly, right? So I'll go on the hourly time frame, and I'll see what kind of pattern is forming on the hourly, right? Let's just say it's a bull flag or a rising wedge, which is bearish, or a bull flag, which is bullish. So I'll see, okay, I see a rising wedge in the hourly. All right, so what I'm going to look for now in the 10-minute time frame is support and resistance levels to open short within that pattern on the hourly. Okay, so what my whole goal is to try and get to the top of that pattern as much as I can. So the top of the rising wedge, opening short on the 10-minute, so that eventually in the hourly it'll play out the most probable move, which is to the downside, because a rising wedge going into resistance is bearish, and because I'm on the 10-minute, I get better entries going into that pattern, and then eventually it breaks down, and then boom, you make your money. Okay, so that's kind of like my strategy when it comes to day trading. Maybe I'll go over that in a specific video if people really want. Just let me know. I'll probably only do it for members, like paid members, because well, I think they need to have more value in my opinion. So, and I find that trading strategy to be extremely valuable. And there's a lot of things that go into it other than just seeing the pattern and trading with it. There are other things like timing of candles, how many candles have actually been printed, and etc. etc. I won't go into the details, but the point is, we have this bearish structure, but we are seeing indications of a possible bullish pattern that was forming. So far, it looks like it's failing. We'll see. Okay, there's plenty of time here. If it does come down, here are the levels where it's going to hit first. And you'll see you'll see bounces here. You'll see bounces here, either between these levels or even back to this very, very strong horizontal level at 410 pretty much. Okay, and I'm gonna keep it there. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna cut it off from here. I'm gonna do another video later today about specific stuff that members have asked me to look at. So I think we're gonna finish this video here. So remember, if you're along with me, just keep your eye out on the Discord, as I'll alert you on any updates that I do. All right, so everyone, remember, be patient, be vigilant, and be nimble. Love you guys. Take care.